Hey guys, today I'm here at the Bund called Waitan in Chinese. It's a waterfront area center of Shanghai. Okay, let's see around. So, the walking tour that I'm planning in the Bund, I will be beginning from the Waibaidu Bridge and will be walking around the Huangpu River to the west. And I will take the ferry from the East Jinling Road ferry station to the Dongchang Road ferry station. And from there, I will be heading towards to the Oriental Pier TV tour. Well, so what you are seeing ahead is the Waibaidu Bridge. It is one of the landmarks of the older city of Shanghai, spanning the Suzhou Creek, and at the confluence of this creek with the Huangpu River. It is the oldest and largest steel bridge in the city. Walking on the bridge, you can enjoy the distinctive scenery on both banks of Suzhou Creek, looking east to the opposite bank of Huangpu River. The Oriental Pier Tower, Riverside Avenue, Jingmao Tower, etc. are brightly lit. Stretching from north to south, going through over 100 years. Waibaidu Bridge has witnessed the restoration of Shanghai. Bridge was built in 1906 to replace the former wooden bridge and was constructed to accommodate both trams and cars. It was designed and built by British, and it is said the steel was imported from England.
Summer in the hills, those hazy days I do remember. We were running still, had the whole world at our feet, watching seasons change. Our roads were lined with adventure, mountains in the way couldn't keep us from the sea. Here we stand, open arms. This is home where we are, ever strong in the world that we made. I still
It is the first all-steel bridge and the only surviving example of camelback truss bridge in China. The anecdote about Du Yuesheng, one of the 4 tycoons in old Shanghai, has since associated Waibaidu Bridge with romance. Perched at the point where Suzhou Creek meets the Huangpu River, Shanghai's mother river, the 107-year-old bridge has become a popular hangout for couples and locate young girls to share a common dreams of saying "I do" to their Mr. Writers there.
Come and fly away with me. 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 Don't you be afraid, everything will change. You and I, jumping off the edge. They say dreamers never die, so come and fly, come and fly, come and fly away with me. We're rising, we're falling, we're making through. We're climbing, we're soaring, 1,000 views. We're rising, we're falling, we're making through. We're climbing, we're soaring, 1,000 Somewhere by the emerald sea, where the moon and water meet. Somewhere close to harmony, when the world is sound asleep. Something's gonna bring the change, journeys we are meant to take. Something at the edge of space, calling us to fly away. Don't you be afraid.
So now we are heading towards Shanghai People's Heroes Memorial Tower. The structure was built by the Shanghai municipal government in 1993 as a memorial to those soldiers heroes who laid down their lives in the Shanghai Liberation War and the Second Opium War imposed by the Allied powers of England, France, and America against the Chinese to sell opium in China forcibly in return for silk. tea and porcelain.
Journeys we are meant to take. Something at the edge of space, calling us to fly away.
enjoying the video, please hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to like the video.